Okay, think about this number. $134.68 billion.
Hmm.
That's the estimate for the global liquefied petroleum gas LPG market, just for 2025.
Yeah, it's a huge figure.
It really is. And it's funny because LPG is something most of us interact with, maybe daily. Cooking, heating, sometimes even cars.
Absolutely.
But we probably don't think much about the sheer scale of the global market behind it.
No, you're right. And it's more than just a big number, isn't it? It's really an engine for a lot of things. Global industries, energy access for literally billions of people.
Exactly. It's kind of a hidden giant.
It really is. And looking into the details of that $134 billion market, it gives you a fascinating perspective on global energy, economic development, all sorts of things.
Well, that's exactly what we're planning to do today in this deep dive. We've got our hands on a pretty comprehensive report looking into the global LPG market.
Right. This is the 8th edition, actually. Just came out March 2025. So very current data.
And it looks back a bit, too.
It does. It uses 2024 as the base year, but it pulls in historical data from 2021 through to 2024. And then it forecasts all the way out to 2033.
So a really solid time frame.
Oh, yeah. It gets into regional differences, where the LPG comes from, the sources, and all the different ways it's used. Pretty detailed stuff.
Now, wading through a report like that, well, it can be a bit much, let's be honest.
Can feel like homework, yeah.
So our aim here is to sort of cut through all that data and pull out the really key insights, the interesting bits.
In nuggets.
Exactly. We want to give you a clear picture of what's happening with LPG globally, what's driving it, what's holding it back, what new trends are popping up, and where it's all happening geographically. Basically, the aha moments.
Precisely. Our mission, really, is to boil down this analysis. Focus on the key drivers, the restraints, those emerging trends, and how different parts of the world fit into this massive market.
All right, let's dive in then, starting with that big picture. We mentioned the $134.68 billion for 2025. Where does the report see things going over the next, 8 years or so?
Yeah, looking ahead, the forecast is pretty positive. They expect the market to hit about $187.17 billion by 2033.
Okay, so that's quite a jump.
It is. It works out to a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR of 4.2% between 2025 and 2033.
4.2%. That's solid, steady growth.
Mm-hmm.
So what's behind that? What's pushing this demand for LPG upwards?
Good question. The report points to a few main things. First, there's just this growing global demand for cleaner, more efficient energy sources generally.
Right, LPG burns cleaner than some other fuels.
Exactly, compared to things like coal or kerosene, yeah. So it's becoming a preferred choice in many places. Second, you've got more people using it at home and in businesses.
For heating and cooking mainly.
Mostly heating and cooking, yeah,
Okay.
especially in areas that don't have easy access to natural gas pipelines.
Makes sense.
And then thirdly, it's also gaining ground as an alternative fuel for transportation, autogas.
Ah, yes. Okay, so cleaner burning, easier access in some areas, and transport uses. Those are strong drivers. Now, geographically speaking, how does this $134 billion break down? Is it spread evenly?
Not at all, actually.
Ah.
This is where it gets interesting. North America, right now, in 2025, has the biggest piece of the pie, over 40%.
40%, wow.
Yeah, it's about $49.83 billion for 2025. But their growth is forecast to be a bit slower, around 2.7% CAGR through 2033.
And why is so big there?
A lot of it is the U.S. being a major exporter, largely thanks to all the shale gas production.
Right, the shale boom effect. Okay, so North America leads. Who's next?
Europe comes in second. They hold over 30% of the market, roughly $39 billion in 2025. Their growth rate is projected a bit higher than North America's at 3.3%.
Okay.
But the real growth story, the fastest growth, seems to be happening in the Asia-Pacific region, APAC.
Ah, okay. That comes up a lot in global markets. What's the picture there for LPG?
Well, currently, for 2025, APAC shares around 23%, which is about $32.32 billion. But, and this is the key thing, it's expected to grow at the fastest rate globally. We're talking a CAGR of 6.9% through 2033.
Nearly 7%. That's significant. Why so fast?
It's really driven by rapid urbanization across the region, plus a lot of industrial growth.
Yeah.
And the report specifically calls out India.
India. What's happening there?
India's growth is even faster, projected at an 8.8% CAGR. A big part of that is government programs pushing LPG adoption, especially for cooking in rural areas. It's a massive shift.
8.8%. Wow. That really is a growth engine. What about the other regions? South America, Middle East, Africa?
Yep, there's smaller pieces, but still growing. South America has just over 5% share in 2025, about $5.12 billion, and is growing at a decent clip, 4.9% CGR.
Right.
Brazil's subsidies in using it for cars are factors there.
Okay.
The Middle East is smaller still, around 2% share, maybe $5.39 billion in 2025, but growing faster at 5.4% CAGR. Think Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030, diversifying energy.
Interesting. And Africa?
Africa's about 1% of the market currently, just under $3 billion in 2025, with a projected growth of 4.5%. A lot of that is driven by the need for cleaner cooking fuels, particularly in places like South Africa.
So a really varied global picture. North America and Europe dominate now, but Asia Pacific, especially India, is where the really dynamic growth is happening.
That's a good summary, yeah.
Now, the report also looks at where the LPG comes from, the source. What did it say about that?
Right, it breaks it down into three main sources, from refineries, what's called associated gas, and non-associated gas.
Okay.
Currently, the dominant source is refineries, which makes sense, right? LPG is a natural byproduct when you refine crude oil, and refining is still huge globally.
So most of it comes from oil refining today. Is that likely to change?
Well, the report highlights that non-associated gas is actually the fastest growing source category.
Non-associated gas. Remind me what that is exactly.
Sure. So associated gas is natural gas you find mixed in with oil deposits.
Yeah.
You get it out when you're producing oil. Non-associated gas comes from natural gas fields, where gas is the main thing, not oil.
Got it. So more gas extracted purely for gas's sake.
Exactly. And because there's this big push towards cleaner energy and more natural gas explorations happening, this source of LPG is really picking up steam. It's shifting the balance a bit.
Interesting. So the source mix is evolving. Now, what about the other side of the equation who's actually using all this LPG? The end users.
Yeah, the end user outlook is also really revealing. The report identifies the main sectors as residential commercial, petrochemical and refinery, industrial, transportation, and then a catch-all others.
And which one is the biggest consumer right now?
By far, it's the residential and commercial sector. That's mainly cooking and heating, like we mentioned earlier, especially crucial in places without widespread natural gas grids.
Like India, you mentioned.
Exactly. The report notes that in India, something like over 70% of households use LPG for cooking. It's fundamental.
70%. That's huge. Okay, so homes and businesses are the main users now. Where's the growth coming from in terms of usage?
The fastest growing segment is actually the industrial sector.
Oh, interesting. Why is that?
Industries are increasingly adopting LPG because it's a cleaner fuel option for things like manufacturing, processing, even power generation in some cases. This is especially true in those rapidly industrializing economies like India and China again. They need more energy, but they're also trying to manage pollution.
Right, cleaner industrial fuel. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we've talked sources and users. What about the bigger market forces, the drivers, the challenges, the trends?
Yeah, the market dynamics. We've touched on some drivers already, that demand for cleaner energy is key. But also, those government initiatives are really important, like the PMUY program in India promoting domestic use.
That direct government push.
Definitely. Also, the increasing use in transport auto gas and in industry, like we just discussed. Plus, just building out the infrastructure, the distribution networks, especially in emerging economies across Asia and Africa, that enables growth.
So, lots of tailwinds. Are there any headwinds? Things holding the market back?
There are. The report points out the high initial costs. Setting up storage, transportation, all the infrastructure needed for LPG isn't cheap. That can be a barrier.
The upfront investment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's competition. Natural gas is a big competitor, especially where pipelines exist. And of course, the growing renewable energy sector is also vying for share in the energy mix.
Always competition in energy. Okay, what about trends? Anything new or innovative changing the game?
Yeah, a couple of really interesting ones. First is the rise of bio-LPG.
Bio-LPG. Made from plants.
Essentially, yeah. It's produced from renewable feedstocks, things like vegetable oils, waste cooking oil, even agricultural leftovers. It offers a much lower carbon footprint, so it taps into that sustainability drive.
Okay, that sounds like a potentially significant development. What else?
The other big trend is the continued growth of auto gas, using LPG as a vehicle fuel. While it's still niche in some places, countries like Italy, South Korea, Turkey, they have really big established auto gas markets already. It shows the potential.
Right, proving the concept on a large scale. Bio-LPG and auto gas definitely trends to watch. Now, this is obviously a huge competitive market. Who are the main companies involved?
It's described as highly competitive, yeah. You got the big multinational oil and gas giants, national oil companies owned by governments, and smaller independent suppliers too. It's a mix,
And they're all fighting for share using different strategies?
pretty much. Expanding distribution, investing in new infrastructure, adopting new tech, forming partnerships, mergers, acquisitions, all the usual corporate strategies you'd expect in a major global industry.
Can you name a few of the key players? Just to get a sense of the landscape.
Sure. The report mentions many you'd recognize. Shell, BP, Total Energies, ExxonMobil,
The
Chevron.
super major.
Yep. Plus big national players like Saudi Aramco, Gazprom from Russia, CNPC, and Sinopec from China.
Right.
And others like Indian Oil Corp, ADNOC from Abu Dhabi, Pertamina from Indonesia. It's a global field.
A real mix of global private and state-owned giants. Does the report mention any recent specific activities or deals that show what's happening?
It does give a few examples which kind of bring the trends to life, like ADNOC signed a $2 billion deal with Pertamina back in March 2021 to supply LPG and sulfur. Shows those big supply agreements.
Okay.
Novatek in Russia reported higher natural gas sales in early 2024, reflecting that growing gas focus. ExxonMobil finished expanding its Beaumont refinery in March 2023, showing continued investment in refining. Indian Oil Corp had plans back in Feb 2022 to boost LPG bottling in Northeast India that speaks to meeting growing demand in specific regions.
Right, expanding access.
And interestingly, Astomos Energy, a Japanese company, bought the first ever carbon-neutral LPG cargo from Shell in June 2021. That points directly to that sustainability trend and bio-LPG interest.
Those examples really help ground the discussion. Now, you mentioned the report goes deeper into specific regions. Could we maybe zoom in on one or two just quickly?
Absolutely. Let's take India again, given its huge growth rate.
Yeah, that 8.8% is striking.
The report really pins that growth on those government programs, especially the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana PMUY. That initiative specifically aimed to get clean cooking fuel, mainly LPG, to millions of poorer households. It's been hugely impactful on demand, direct policy driving market change.
A clear example of policy working. What about, say, the U.S., given its market share?
Okay, the U.S. Its large share comes from a few things. Strong demand for cleaner energy options is one factor for heating, industry, transport. But also, government policies focusing on energy security play a big role, supporting LPG use for heating and transportation. So it's a mix of market pull and policy push.
Market demand plus strategic policy. Got it. Maybe one more quick regional look.
How about Turkey? The report flags it as the fastest growing in the Middle East region.
Why Turkey specifically?
It seems to be down to just growing overall energy demand in the country, combined with a particularly strong uptake of LPG for transportation, that auto gas sector we talked about. So a regional focus on auto gas is driving growth there.
Fascinating how the drivers differ region by region. Okay, as we start to pull this all together, what are the absolute key takeaways from this deep dive into the LPG market report?
Right, the main points. First, that solid growth forecast, 4.2% CAGR globally through 2033. The market is definitely expanding.
Okay, continued growth.
Second, remember the current dominance.
Yeah.
Residential commercial is the biggest user, and refinery-based LPG is the biggest source right now.
The current state of play.
But third, and this is crucial for the future, watch the growth potential in the industrial sector as an end user and the rise of non-associated gas as a source. That's where significant shifts are happening.
So growth is steady, but the internal dynamics where it comes from, who uses it most, are evolving.
Precisely. It gives you a good snapshot of both where the market is and where it seems to be heading based on this analysis.
Definitely feels like we've covered a lot of ground and gotten a much clearer picture of this vital, if sometimes overlooked, energy market.
Yeah, hopefully this deep dive provides that solid understanding of the key trends and the regional forces at play.
So as we wrap up, here's something to maybe chew on. We've talked about bio-LPG and sustainability, and we all know about the push towards things like electric vehicles. So thinking beyond this report's 2033 forecast, how might those bigger shifts really start to alter the growth path we've discussed? Could the dominance of certain sectors change even more dramatically long-term?
That's the big question, isn't it? The long-term energy transition landscape, it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
And of course, if any particular area sparked your interest, maybe a specific region or that bio-LPG trend or the companies involved, you can always dig deeper into those topics yourself.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, understanding this LPG market gives you, I think, a really valuable lens on the bigger energy picture and the economic forces shaping our world. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.